Hi there everybody, I'm Fred Thomas and you are watching All Things Bike, and today we are speaking with Michael Stefanakis, founder of the Southern Maine Mountain Bike Syndicate. And joining us is Ron Cavalope, his son Nate Cavalope, and Joe Less. Everyone, thanks for being on the show.
Than's for having us.
How did I do with the names?
Thank you. Great to be
I
here.
got it.
Great.
Right? Yeah, I did it all. Well, it is great to have you guys here because there's something good going on with the Syndicate. And my first question really is, what does the name of this organization tell us about the mission and the organization?
Yeah, you know, it was interesting when we first set out. We thought about having a school-based team, and the problem is finding enough people at any one school that you could pull enough riders together. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, in the mountain biking world, there's the Santa Cruz Syndicate, right, which is a group of riders that have Santa Cruz as their base, but they're sponsored by a lot of different people, and they're kind of they're independent entities. Mm-hmm. And so the idea was, let's pull a syndicate of riders together from all over the area around Freeport and Brunswick and Portland, and so you know we thought it sounded like a cool name too.
Yeah, yeah, no, and so it's that's you're building this. You're starting with this sort of group approach, and what's the long-term objective? Is it to have it as one organization for the whole state, or is it more like each school will have its own mountain bike team?
Yeah, so my son was in 7th grade, and we had heard that there was the Maine State Mountain Bike Championship that was happening up in Augusta, Maine. And so we got in the car and we drove up there, and we realized that it was 2 different schools. It was Kents Hill and Camden Hill schools were racing for the Maine Mountain Bike Championship, and there were no other schools there. And so, it was at that point that we thought, they said, well, yeah, you could race if you wanted to, and you didn't have to be in high school, you could be in junior high school. Right. And so the next year, we started going out to some of the races that are part of the Northern New England High School Mountain Bike Racing Series. Right. And so after a year of driving around and going to some races, we put out some feelers, and you know, the gentlemen to my right here were part of the founding members of the syndicate. So we had probably 9 core riders the first year, and we would balloon to about 15 depending on availability. But lots of people kept telling us that, you know, wow, I wish I'd known about it earlier. And so, you know, when we had the opportunity to spread the word, now this year we've got even more people. But the vision is that we want to try and build up mountain biking, high school, middle school mountain biking in Maine. So it's, you know, it's the thing where if you wanted to ride a bike instead of run cross country, you could do that. Right,
and then you could compete at the, you know, in the New England High School League, and then everything Kent Hill, I think, in New Hampshire. I'm not sure, but there are all these leagues and races going on.
Yep.
So you can at least turn up and participate. Well, you know, Joe, that's interesting, and you, Nate, you guys are both the founding, or the first riders in this organization. Yep. Yeah, I mean, how did you get into mountain biking, Joe? What was your first mountain biking?
Well, my dad mountain biked he's been mountain biking for a long time, and so right when he started me out mountain biking when I was pretty young at Bradbury Mountain, which is like 2 minutes away from my house, and it's a great place to mountain bike. Wow. So I've been mountain biking there for a really long time.
That's great. And now you're racing. So you started off riding around the woods trying to keep up with Dad, but now you're dropping them, I'm sure, like garbage on the hills of Bradbury Mountain. What about you, Nate?
Well, so when I first started, I didn't like very much, but then in probably 7th or 8th grade, some of my friends started doing it too, so I decided to ride with them and do it just as another way to hang out with them. Yeah. And I actually decided I liked it that time.
Yeah, and so you're racing too, right? And I mean, were you racing these guys? And how competitive was it? Or how competitive does it get when you guys get together for a training ride? Are you riding along for part of it, or do you really try to beat each other up the hill?
It depends.
Yeah.
Like if everybody's kind of feeling good or you want to go fast that day and like work pretty hard, then we will. But if it's like, I don't know, if you're tired,
if
you
people
just
are into it, that's great.
Yeah, if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can just, everybody just kind of rides along together.
I think at the practices, we're usually like trying to ride hard. We're not usually like competing against each other at the practices.
Right. No, that's good. I mean, you do that as and when, and then, well, what are the practices like? I mean, that's something I'm just dying to know. I'm sort of skipping ahead here, but how do you describe them? I mean, first, for a coach, how do you manage 30 kids or 15 kids or whatever on mountain bikes in the woods at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in October? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So last year it was a lot easier because we didn't have 30 people. This year we'll have significantly more. We had our first practice on last Tuesday, a week ago now, and 30 people showed up. So it's a much bigger group.
Right.
In the races, there's 3 categories. There's A, B, and C. The C riders or the middle school riders or people who might not have as much experience. The B riders are pretty solid mountain bikers, right? Who have good speed and good stamina and technical skills, and the A riders are ridiculously fast.
Right.
And so usually those are, your more advanced riders and upperclassmen and high school. And so we, last year we rode as a group together most of the time, and letting some of the faster riders go out ahead. And we one of the things that's amazing is we had 30 people show up last Tuesday. 15 of them were adults. So we have plenty of interest from coaches. 5 of them didn't even have kids on the team. They just wanted to be around the energy that these riders have, and getting out on the trails and riding with them is a lot of fun. And so we'll break up with different coaches for different groups. And the vision this year is that we want to keep it fun, but we also want to make sure that the people who want to go at whatever pace they want to go have a group that they can be with, because it's that group that makes it fun. As you know from road biking, being in a group is more fun than just being out by yourself.
That's true, and there's opportunities to push each other, or you try and be the first to the top of Dutton Hill. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's great. And so it sounds like there's some mentoring going on. I mean, because of you got 3 categories of races, and then you have some adults. And now, Ron, do you turn up for the practices?
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Tell us about it.
I love it. I love seeing all these boys and girls coming out and riding their bikes, and finding kids that are a lot like they are.
Right.
Some of these kids don't fit into the big team sport mold. So the great thing about last year was these guys just immediately gravitated to each other and talking about their gear, talking about where they've ridden before, and they're having fun while they're out there, and that's the best part of it all. And getting to ride with them and see them improve week after week. They follow each other and they learn from each other. So that's a great thing about practicing and getting them together.
Yeah, I mean it's such a non-21st century thing. There's no screen involved, except unless you count the Garmin, but or whatever. I mean, you
They'll
probably
look at Strava afterwards.
But I mean, is it fair to say that it really is a non-screen environment, and that,
absolutely,
and people are? I mean, can you tell the kids are acting differently, or do you feel like you're acting differently, or it seems really refreshing.
Yeah, they're interacting with each other. They're talking with each other. Afterwards, it's hard to break everyone away and say, okay, let's go home. We have to get in the cars and get back for dinner.
Hey, well, quick digression. What kind of mountain bike are you riding, Nate and Joe? Just give us a little geek talk for a second.
All right. I have a Trek Top Fuel.
Nice.
And
is that carbon 27 or 29?
It's a full suspension 29er carbon race bike.
Sweet. And single, 1x, right? They're all 1x.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. All right, Joe, how about you?
So my bike was originally my dad's bike, and it's a felt compulsion full suspension, and he built it from the frame.
Nice.
And so it's got a bunch of different parts on it and stuff.
Yeah.
So
But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a medium frame, and so he upgraded recently because it was just too small for him, but it fits me great.
Perfect. Yeah. You'll grow out of it soon. But it's full suspension, which is, I mean, the only mountain bike I ever had, and I still have it, is steel, and it's there's no shock up front, and there's no shock on the rear chainstay. So, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, the sport has evolved so much now.
But we'll still see that.
Yeah.
And everyone's welcome. Just working brakes and a helmet is really
we had a dad show up without
requirement.
brakes on his bike last week. So.
That's dads. I mean, they
But
do
it
this
was
kind of.
dad. It was okay.
They're just trying to sort of show their credentials in some way.
Well, we've had kids with fat bikes. Kids with very older bikes that we needed to work on throughout the season to keep them running, but it's great because it got them out there and they can pedal it.
It sounds like there are plenty of bikes around too. So if someone needs a bike, someone might have a bike in the garage that can be used. Well, tell us about the races. I mean, we got an idea of the categories, but where are they held, and how long are they, and what's the racing season?
So there's two different racing groups that we're in. So there is the main series still, which is Kents Hill and Camden and the Syndicate, and we're hoping that we're going to get to put a race on this year. So there may be up to 4 races on Saturdays in the main series. And then the Northern New England series there's an Eastern and a Western division.
Right.
And the Eastern division is what we're a part of. And so we'll go to Gould Academy, we'll go down to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, we'll go to Freiburg. Freiburg Academy hosts a race. And then there's some at the White Mountain School.
That's right, yeah.
There's one at Kennet in North Conway. And then there's one other that I'm forgetting about. So depending on how the racing season goes, some of these riders could be racing on Wednesdays and Saturdays 7-8 times a year.
Wow.
And then there's a championship race, which last year was at Gould, and because it was the Eastern this year, next year we're going to go to, or this year we're going to go to the Western division, and there's a school that's going to host it there.
Right. So I mean, that's a full racing season. I mean, if you're racing 7 or 8 races in the fall in high school, that's pretty good. And I mean, describe how they work. Are they point to point, or is it a circuit through the woods, or is there gravel, or what's the mix typically?
It's typically a circuit. Yep, and depending on category, A, B, C.
Right.
C's sometimes have a slightly different course that's a little bit easier for their skill level.
Right.
That maybe they will do 1 lap or 2 laps of. But then the A and B as well. A and B might do the same course, but A might go 1 lap further.
Go one more time. And I mean, and how technical are they? I mean, I don't really know, how technical these things can get, but generally are they trails through the woods, or are they sort of going down a meadow, or is there any sort of general sense of what
it's not. So whatever's like super technical that like a good amount of kids might not want to ride, there's an A and a B line, so there's always a way around it.
I see.
So like for example at Gould, there's like a big rock garden, but then there's an easier way that's kind of windy that goes like around it.
Right, it might be longer.
It's longer, so it takes longer, but like
so if you're feeling good and you're up for it, you make that split decision and you're in the rock garden. But if you've had a couple spills already, maybe you go route B. I could feel that. What's the hardest part in mountain biking for you guys? So you start, Nate. What's the hardest part for you?
I think the hardest part would probably actually just be the start line.
Okay.
Because it's just nerves.
But I mean, the start it's the start. But don't you run to your bikes and then hop on and then?
No, we did that at the first race last year, but we didn't do it at any other races.
Right. Okay.
That's a Le Mans style.
You're
dating yourself, Fred. Yeah.
I certainly am. And they're sort of confusing disciplines here, but. All right, so that's, but you get used to it. I mean, you start enough races before you know it, you're going to be sitting there going, when are we going to get going, but I can understand that. And how about you, Joe? What's the hardest part, do you think?
I'd say also just like the start of the race when everybody's at the same place in the course. Like I remember in the championship last year, there were so many riders, and you're like, at the start we were just like crawling along because everything was funneling into a single track trail, and there were like collisions and everything. You're just trying to get by people.
Wow, gosh, yeah. I mean, so it sounds like it sounds like a cyclocross sort of mad rush for the whole shot. Well, then what about your strengths? What's your strength, do you think? And when the race gets going, are you a good climber? Are you a good descender? Handler? What do you think is?
I'm not like an extremely fast rider, but I think I'm good at like picking lines. Like I think that's my biggest strength is like picking lines and like riding technical stuff, because a lot of the stuff I ride like at Bradbury is pretty technical.
Right. The roots and the rocks, and it's essential. I thought. I mean, that's the way. It's probably the way you win, right? It's by just finding the line that is not going to knock you off your bike.
Yeah.
Cool. And how about you, Nate? What's your strength?
Probably like some techie stuff and the climbs.
Yeah, well, you can win a race there too. But I heard that descending is just as important in mountain biking. I mean, it's I guess important everywhere. But I mean, the surface is not smooth. I mean, how do you deal with it? I mean, do you guys have a sort of a method for your descending techniques?
Just practice. Yeah, it's like
That's right.
The more you ride, the better your response to everything is. So if you ride a lot, you can go to a race and know what line you're going to take on the downhill when you're going like as fast as you are.
And also like planning ahead for the hill. Like if you're about to go down it, I usually like look ahead and like know which line I'm going to pick.
Wow.
To like. Just so I'm not like making last second decisions.
Yeah.
And also before a lot of the races, you can ride the course once, and so you know what's coming.
Wow. I mean, you guys are. I mean, I don't know what I was doing in middle school, but I was not nearly as informed and experienced a cyclist as you guys are now. So I mean, if you keep it up, before you know it, you're going to be doing this wherever in Colorado or in some high level event. Which it sort of makes me think of the next thing is what do parents have to say about all of this? I mean, it sounds like they're very psyched, but it also sounds like they may not know anything about it. And are they fully aware of for example, the technical aspects, going down a hill and bikes? I mean, what do parents say when they hear about this thing?
We haven't had any. Again, we were a small word of mouth group last year. This year we're getting more and more people out there, and I think that one of the things that's magic is the progression that happens when you get a bunch of people together and they get to ride. Yeah. Because then I watch Joe go down something, or I watch Nate go down something, and now I can see how someone might do that, and I can think, well, if Joe can do it, maybe I can do it, and then I get better and better. And we saw some riders last year. We had one rider who started in the C division, and by the end of the season was squarely in the middle of the pack in the B division.
Wow.
After 10 weeks of riding together. The parents are really supportive. There's lots of parents who come out and ride with us. The great thing about riding a bike is it's riding a bike. It's fun just to begin with.
Sure.
And so there isn't anything that we're doing that's super dangerous. Obviously there's danger involved in everything, and we make sure that everybody has helmets, and as Ron said, working brakes, and their bikes are checked out. Their bikes are checked out. But just going out and having fun, that's what it's all about. Right.
But yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'm sure that once the parents realize that they're outdoors and meeting people and staying active, it's a no-brainer.
Well, one of the things too, though, is I think back when I was a kid, I would say, I just want to ride my bike.
Yeah.
And people would say, you want to ride your bike to football practice? And I was like, no, I just want to ride my bike. And people didn't get it. And I think today, because we've introduced cycling to kids at such a young age, and they want to do it, and there's enough of it out there in the culture that there are other kids out there asking for that. And so a lot of what we're hearing, at least I'm hearing, and I don't know if you all are hearing the same thing, but it's like, oh my gosh, finally, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been looking for. This is incredible.
This is something different or something new. What about the girls? I mean, we don't have girls here today, but there is a girls team, and I know that there are a lot of girls doing this in the league. Tell us about that.
So it's interesting. We were at Kingdom Trails, not as a group, but just as a family, back over Memorial, and it felt like there were almost more women riding than men. You know, there's a lot of women who are out there on mountain bikes today. Here in town, we've got the Single Track Sisters, and they're out there at Bradbury and Westside Trails riding on a regular basis. And last year we had one girl who showed up in the beginning, but she had already had some prior commitments. This year we've got at least 2 girls who are on the team. And we hope that more and more show up. So hopefully the 2 girls who showed up on Tuesday will become the core, and they'll be like these guys last year and next year, and maybe even later this year we'll have 20 girls showing up.
Yeah,
so.
No, if you just keep getting the word out, I'm sure it'll happen, because I mean, maybe the girls want to try something different too, and it sounds like they can practice very easily with everybody all at once, and just a lot of efficiencies. Well, what about some race stories from you guys? So just what was the last race you did, and how did it work out? You start, Joe.
Well, the last, I remember the championship was a pretty good race. I really liked the course.
It was in Gould, right?
Gould, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I really liked that course. It was just really fun. There's a lot of different stuff going on in it, but that's the course with the big rock garden.
Okay.
And that was kind of stressful, because I think there were I don't remember how many laps there were, but you definitely do it multiple times, and every time there are tons of people gathered around it.
Oh, right.
And
watching and
spectators.
No pressure.
It's pretty tough, because people have fallen on it and
ouch.
Just totally eating it and
But you just get up and keep going, right? I mean,
yeah.
you might lose some time, or someone might pass you, but
I managed to survive it, but that was definitely kind of cool, having everybody, tons of people on each side of the rock garden just going through it.
I know, that's great. I mean, and spectators. I mean,
Right.
pretty much.
Well, that was the biggest race of the year.
Okay.
So how many racers were there?
350 racers were at that race.
Wow.
So you add in
That's huge.
parents
52
or family
schools.
that comes to watch the racers. And there were a lot of people out there on the course spectating and cheering all the kids on, which is
great.
a great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, I certainly didn't realize how big the league had become, and that's great. So so you'll be there again.
Yep.
This year, right? In fall, in October, I guess. Is that when
End of October? Yeah.
End of October. That's great, and you'll have an advantage. All right, Nate. How about you? What's the sort of the race story from last year that we should know about?
Probably Gould too.
Right.
It's just
the scale of that event is something.
yeah, it's just a huge race.
Yeah.
So yeah, you really have to go from the start, because it bottlenecks really quickly.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
You just have to go for it. And how do they do the starting? I mean, is it the first guy who gets up there, or is there some sort of ranking thing, or?
Well, what did they do last year?
Well, so at the championships, the top 10 kids from each division got called up.
I see. Right.
So the top 10 from the north and the top 10 from the south.
Because you've been racing all season, and you're
points.
You accumulate points.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's.
And then everyone else backs in behind them.
Yeah,
so
right.
they get their front row start.
That's right, and everybody else is
comes
sort of
up
pushing and sort of muscling their way in. Well, all right, that's it's just riveting and exciting stuff. And what can parents do to get involved or spread the word? And what can schools do? I mean, what would you like to see happen on those fronts?
It's a great question. I spoke last week to the assistant principals at 2 different schools, and they are thrilled that their kids at the schools are getting a chance to participate. And I think they're already beginning to think about, is there the critical mass at our school to be able to have our own team? Could Freeport have a team, and Greeley have a team, and Lewiston have a team, and start their own programs there.
Right.
And so what I would say is, if there is interest, we've got a Facebook page that people can go to. They can reach out to us through that, or we've got an email. They can call us. They can look us up.
Right.
But anybody who wants to get involved, I think one of the things that killed me last year is that we started so late that people had already committed to fall sports who would have otherwise loved to have been. And I love the idea that once you've committed to something, you're there. You've already made that commitment. You keep going. Yeah. And so this year we went on a really big blitz talking to schools and reaching out to the different velo clubs to make sure that people knew, because the last thing we want to hear is, oh my gosh, that's great, I just didn't know about it. So the more people that we have, and we don't have a size constraint, so I mean, if we had 60 kids on the team, that would be fantastic. We'd find a way to make it work. Right. So what teachers and parents can do is just reach out and say you're interested, and if you are, we'll find a way to make it work for you.
Wow, well, that's great stuff. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else that you, any story or tidbit that you want to add in? I think, I mean, what you guys are up to sounds really exciting, and I bet you anything you're going to pick up quite a few more riders, girls and boys.
I guess the only thing that I would add, is just that the racing is kind of the icing on the cake. Right. It's the fun that everyone is having, and I keep hearing it over and over and over again when I talk to people, is that, you know, just being around other people who want to ride their bikes, just being around other people who want to be out on their mountain bike is the thing that is the most fun. And then the race is something that you just get to do at the end. Right. Yeah.
There you go. Alrighty. Well, Michael, Joe, Nate, Ron, it's been great to have you on the show, and thank you for coming down and telling us about all this stuff. It's great, and geez, I wish I were in middle school again, you know, so I could learn how to ride a mountain bike.
Thanks for having us.
We'll
take you out.
I know, I will. I'll turn up. I mean, it might be on a cross bike, or I'll have to borrow someone's mountain bike. It's possible. I do ride mountain bikes. It'll happen.
Yeah. Perfect.
We'll make it
right on. All right, everybody. That was Michael Stefanakis, Joe Les, Nate Cavalope, and his father, Ron Cavalope, of the Southern Maine Mountain Bike Syndicate. You can learn more about this great organization on their Facebook page, and you can reach out to Michael through that platform. That's all we've got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.
All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by XeNTiS, performance carbon wheels handmade in Austria for road and off-road riding. XeNTiS, next generation wheels. And Frame and Wheel eBay bike selling services. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.